where they can show what they can do and get hired by the private sector. Now, I know this works because I wrote a paper on this in the late 90s that was published in the Post-Keynesian Journal of Economics called Full Employment and Price Stability. And it was picked up at the University of Missouri by Kansas City and read by Daniel Kozar, who was at the Labor Ministry in Argentina. And he liked it and wanted to do it down there, but they had a regime that wasn't amenable to it. In 2001, Argentina blew up with 32 dead in the street. They had a fixed exchange rate policy that just blew up. And they reopened with a proper floating exchange rate peso. And he managed to get this through. And they offered every head of household a job in Argentina that paid half the minimum wage. Okay, it's like $100 a month, 100 pesos a month. I don't know, it was just like 30, whatever it was. It was a very low wage job. The population was just a little over 30 million, I believe, at the time. They got over 2 million people took this job, took them up in this job. People who had never worked before, never been in the private sector, never expected to be in the private sector. And within 2 years, approximately half of them, were in good private sector jobs. Because once they'd come into this job, they might have been working in a kitchen at a daycare center making soup for kids, and then somebody from an insurance company, local insurance company or a local bank needed somebody in their cafeteria, and they'd come over and say, who do you have, who comes in every time, can you recommend anybody? And these people got jobs. And there was something like 1 million people who had never been in the real economy, within 2 years got good private, for them, good private sector jobs. And Argentina's economy was the strongest in the world, and the political approval down there for the president was something over 70%. It's enormously successful. India's been doing the same thing. They call it the Rural Poor Program, and they've got 52 million people in it now, and from everything I've heard, the same thing has happened. And I can't take direct credit for that, but they do work with the Levy Institute, where the people who published my paper are, and I've talked to them, and they've talked to the people from India. But it's all the same idea. I'm not, trying to take credit for the 50 million, but it's certainly kind of, contributory force to have these published papers and their scholars come in and they go back and implement these programs. Okay, we can do the same thing here with this $8 an hour job. Now, it doesn't cost very much, and perhaps the right number would be $8.25. But the important thing is you don't want to hire people away from the private sector. That's not the point of this job. The point is to facilitate the transition from unemployment to private sector employment. You don't want to disrupt the private sector. You want to support the private sector by providing a pool of working people that they can hire from. Once you're in this $8 an hour job, you never get a raise. If you want more money, go get a private sector job. It's a chance to do that.
But at the same time, you would cut off unemployment benefits, which
I've never said that.
Well, which are often higher. There's been people who
Yeah.
won't take a job making more than $8 an hour
Right.
because they're making more
Right.
off their unemployment
Right.
benefits.
The first thing we do is offer the $8 an hour job, see what happens.
Yeah.
I think we'll be pleasantly surprised that these people will take this job if it's going to help them get the next job, because it's been demonstrated everywhere. We went down, and students went down to Argentina and interviewed the people in this job and said, would you rather come and work and take your 100 pesos or whatever, or would you rather just stay home and get paid? And every one of them said they wanted to come and work. Okay, people want to work. The idea that people aren't working because of unemployment benefits, you can find anecdotal instances, but you can't tell me that 8 million, 2 years ago, 8 million people suddenly decided they'd rather take unemployment than work. That's not what happened. Okay, people want to work. And a lot of people who say they won't want to work, as soon as there's a good job and somebody asks them to work, they do work. I've had experience with my own family members, who aren't doing very much. All of a sudden, I have something going. I say, hey, I need some help. Would you come over and work for me? And they go, okay. As long as you ask. Okay. When we start asking, and if you look back in the labor force participation rates, they go up as the economy improves. People come out of the woodwork to find jobs once there are real jobs and once they feel wanted and needed, especially older people. Okay, they come right out once they feel there's a need for them. So do not underestimate American people's desire to work and be productive, especially as you get older. I just turned 61. I'm out here doing this because I have this desire to be productive and to be helpful, rather than just going home and sitting on my boat. Just for
Back to this theory about the size of government being whatever it should be.
Yeah.
From your perspective right
Yeah.
now, is the current size of government the right size or the wrong size?
I think most of it's the wrong size.
Too big or too small?
Most of it's, a lot of it's too big, and there are some parts that are too small, and a lot of it's just completely disorganized. It's not set up for public purpose. It's set up for all kinds of other reasons. It's set up based on budgets and incomes, and it's just wrong. For example, I would cut, let me give you another thing. Once you understand monetary operations, you realize that there's no reason for and the Treasury to be selling 30-year securities at all. I mean, that makes no sense at all. All it does is push up long-term rates and causes people to have to pay more for their mortgages. The reason they do it, again, goes back to the gold standard, where you wanted to make sure people couldn't cash in the money for gold. So if you got them to tie it up for 30 years, you never had to worry about it. That's gone. The new public purpose under the new monetary arrangements, where you can't cash your money in for gold, is what is this doing to long-term interest rates? So it's completely wrong. By shifting Treasury funding all back to, say, 3-month Treasury bills, or even 1 day, I mean, we don't really need to have, but, you know, functionally it'd be very easy to have them shift to 3-month bills. You know, in a very short period of time, we'll be saving hundreds of billions of dollars a year in interest payments on these Treasury securities. Okay. Now, that could be considered a cutback in government. It's certainly a cutback government spending, even though it's not cutback in personnel. We would need fewer people in Treasury, so there's save a few people there. But that would allow us to lower taxes even more. You don't say, okay, that's good, now we're going to pay down the deficit. You're saying, all right, we're just removing $300 billion a year in interest expenditures. We're taking this money out of the economy. We better, you know, not take it out somewhere else. So now that we've made the government, instead of this size, $4 trillion, we've made it $3.7 trillion, measuring size by dollars. Now the appropriate level of taxation is even lower. Okay. So as we gain efficiencies in government, it allows us to lower taxes to make sure we stay at full employment. Okay. There are a lot of departments, you know, where I've heard anecdotally, and I haven't gone into Washington and done a study of where we need to cut, where we don't need to cut. But once Congress understands that everything's for public purpose, it happens. I remember years ago we had a Grace report which had, you know, excellent suggestions on what was needed and what wasn't needed for government efficiency, and it never happened. Okay.
Is this healthcare reform?
Yeah.
That good?
Okay, I called it the miracle of making the blind man lame. Okay, and even on the debates, I saw the, you know, the intentions. You know, Mr. Blumenthal said that it was a step in the right direction because it took care of, it addressed the ability to, what do you call it, not be excluded for pre-existing conditions. Well, that's all well and good, but that hasn't been implemented yet. And when I look at it, I don't think it's possible to implement it. I think it has no operational existence. I think it's like an optical illusion. And the thing is, if you know that you can't be turned down for pre-existing conditions, then you don't buy health care until after you get sick. Okay? And if everybody did that, then the premiums would just go up to whatever it costs for you to go in and pay for it yourself, plus an administrative fee. So then the health care insurance makes no sense at all if that's in place. And so they're talking about, well, we have to, you know, therefore we're going to have to fine you if you don't buy insurance. Well, how high does a fine have to be? Okay, if it's a penny less, I'm not going to buy it, I'll pay the fine. So you know, we've got ourselves in this impossible situation, and the fines might not even be constitutional. There's almost half the attorney generals around the country are filing complaints about that. So this hasn't been resolved of how, you know, it's a good idea, but doing it through this insurance process, they don't have a viable way to implement it.
Do you think our healthcare system is broken and does need to be fixed, and how does it get fixed?
Okay, so I have a healthcare proposal where I've gotten bipartisan support. And by the way, for the things I've been proposing, I didn't start 6 months ago. I've been pushing these policies and making good progress for certainly 2 years on the payroll tax holiday. And the fact that the president mentioned it, and the president did mention it last week, which I can trace directly or indirectly to my efforts and the efforts of my associates. I've got bloggers all over the country supporting what I've been saying, and you know, for a while now. And also my press releases have been going out nationally on how to, you know, fix this economy. So my healthcare proposal. Okay, so what I, you know, and let me, how's our time? Do I have a few minutes? Let me just, yeah, back up just slightly. Before I give you my proposal, let me just show you what happened with our proposal. We started off with a single payer proposal that immediately got removed. The Republicans immediately removed that. Then it became a public option, which got removed. Okay, and then finally it came down to make this thing work, taking $500 billion out of future Medicare payments to be able to give $1 trillion to the insurance companies, which doesn't sound like the Democrats I grew up with. Okay, so anyway, the Republicans pushed it all the way back to that, and then as soon as it's passed in this form, which to me couldn't be further from what a Democratic populist administration would do, the first thing the Republicans want to do is repeal it. It's like, okay, Okay, that's just a political process. So my healthcare plan. My healthcare plan is where the federal government gives everyone 18 years of age or older a $5,000 to spend on their medical needs for the year. Okay, and it goes into something like a medical savings account. 1,000 is for preventative, and 4,000 is for all your other medical needs. If you need more than $4,000, okay, you're covered by a form of Medicare for all. No donut holes, no copays. We don't need any of that. But a single payer, a Medicare for everything you need above the $4,000. If at the end of the year you haven't used all your $4,000, you get the difference back in cash. And then the next year your account gets topped off with a new $4,000. You haven't put into your account. Okay. So what we have is a system where if you're healthy, you don't spend your $4,000, you get rewarded by getting the money back in cash. If you need more, it's there for you. The $1,000 for preventative, for getting your teeth cleaned, for checkups, you don't get that back. We want you to spend that money. Children under 18 are just covered by Medicare. We don't want parents not bringing their kids to the doctors to get a refund at the end of the year. That's not acceptable. Okay, so we have no insurance premiums for anybody, business or individuals, and there is no economist in the world who will tell you that healthcare should be what's called a marginal cost of production for business. Business should not pay anything for healthcare insurances. It's bad for all of us. It gets embedded into the pricing system. It distorts output and employment decisions. It's the wrong thing to do. Okay, we're doing it for revenue reasons. Okay, we don't understand the monetary system. But once we understand how the monetary system works, then my proposal is viable, which is why no one has proposed it. What it does is unleashes the shopping power of Americans, which is very good. So you've got your $4,000. You can go to any doctor you want. I would have the doctors post their prices on the outside of the doors, like gasoline stations are required to do. And doctors don't have to deal with insurance companies up to that one for the first $4,000. It's only above that they're dealing with Medicare. So even the doctors who are taking care of Medicare patients, for the first $4,000 are just doing it on a cash basis. Give them a receipt, that's about it. And so it gives us complete freedom and personal responsibility up to $4,000, and then above that, we're covered by catastrophic insurance. And $4,000 might not be the right number. Congress might debate this and come up with $5,000 or $3,500. I'm just giving numbers for examples on this page. And for the country as a whole, where we're spending $2.5 trillion on our medical right now, expenses, that includes administration, we're going to save between $500 billion and $1 trillion a year in real costs, okay, for everyone. And it lowers costs immediately. First of all, it pulls the administrative costs out of everything, so it lowers costs by a third, because it put about a third of everything, last I read, correct me if I'm wrong, in healthcare is administrative costs. And doctors save an enormous amount by not having to deal with insurance companies for your first $4,000. You just pay them cash or through your medical savings account. Doctors I know are spending half their time or more just talking back and forth with insurance companies over whether they'll cover this guy's expenses and whether this test should be allowed or not. Now it's your own money.
Well, what's to stop the doctor from, I don't know, say setting a broken arm costs $500.
Yeah.
What's to stop the doctor from charging $3,800 now, because he'll get that cash fast, and then he'll deal with the medical insurance that he was dealing with anyway?
Well, you'll go to the next doctor.
So
He's got a price on the door. It's broken arms, $500.
So it'll be you'll be able to shop for your medical service.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's tough to do when you have a broken arm or
Yes.
a ruptured appendix or a heart attack.
Yeah. And if that becomes a problem, we can address that problem.
Okay.
But certainly along the way, things are going to develop. There'll be organizations developing where you will sign up like one of these shopping clubs, where they have a list of everything and they negotiate prices for you. And you can do that if you want, or you can go do it on your own.
So Sam's Club or BJ's
Sam's
will have
Club,
a
exactly.
medical wing in there or
Right,
something.
exactly. And they'll be competing with others to see who can do it at the best cost.
These are some interesting ideas.
Yeah.
You're having a difficult time getting them out because you haven't been invited to.
Yeah, not as difficult. I'm having a difficult getting into mass media, but if you look,